an Airbus 380 can easily land on this runway. So obviously to accomplish that kind of the work with 4,460 meters, what happened is that the amount of material which is used in this runway, can you imagine that you can build a 80-kilometer expressway.
80 kilometers of expressway.
Expressway you can build with the amount of material which is used on this runway, which is 2.5 meters of cement, bitumen, etc. has been laid here.
Under this
Where we are standing, 2.5 meters. Here is the reinforcement of the concrete and bitumen which has been done. 10 layers have been done. So obviously to do that kind of a subject, we have imported a lot of cement. We have got a lot of cement we bought. In fact, you can put up a mini cement plant. The entire annual capacity is required just to build this runway and the passenger terminal building. You would have already seen it. So that is what we are using.
This is enormous amount of engineering there going on. Tell me, once the Airbus 380 comes there, it's going to come in from there. After that, how does it move? It moves away towards that side?
The moment it moves in, we have a 5 rapid exit ways. It may not go to the end of the runway. It comes to one of the rapid exit ways. Like that it goes, then gets into a taxiway. That taxiway you can see there, which is a parallel to this runway. In fact, for any reason, if this runway cannot work, aircraft can land on that taxiway also. It is that big.
And from there they go straight
into the passenger terminal building. So that's the way it has been designed.
Okay. Now tell me, for an infrastructure project like this, to execute this, how many people do you need and what kind of security do they have working at this place?
Actually what we have done is that, I would like to mention that this terminal and the runway we are building, the terminal capacity is 34 million passenger capacity. That is one of the largest terminal building in the world. And once we complete this by 2010, we will have more than 54 million passenger capacity of all the airport. And to give you an example, this terminal we are building, brand new one, is slightly bigger than the Terminal 3 of Singapore, bigger than the Terminal 5 of Heathrow. And to give an example, today, the entire Singapore Changi Airport handles about 31 million passengers. That one single terminal can take 34 million passengers.
34 million passengers.
Yes. So, to do this kind of a thing, what basically you need is that men, material, equipment. Men, when I say is that at this point of time, about 12,000 people are working here on a runway and terminal building. And when it comes to material, the material is important. You can see the huge pile of stone, then the stone crust sand, then the sand and the steel. All these things we are getting it on a very dedicated basis.
So all that is going to go in?
All that is going to go in for the construction. That even with that, we are completing this entire terminal building in 37 months. Normally this size of the construction around the world takes about 60 months. Like Singapore has taken 60 months. London for the Terminal 5 has taken 58 months. We are completing in 37 months. To do that, we need to have machines. Because only with manpower, we cannot do that in that short time. So what we have done is that we imported some of the equipments for the first time into India. You may see later on there, there's a 18-ton vibrator paver is there. First time imported into India. We have 4 batching plants there. They can put 240 cubic meters per hour. This is largest in Asia. Largest in Asia. So that is the kind of the equipments we have imported and invested here. And the total project cost is $2.3 billion, but we are spending a massive amount of money on the equipment.
Tell me, we are now very close to the budget season. Budget is around the corner. It's going to be sometime in the end of the month, 29 February. So for large, big infrastructure projects like this, public-private partnership, PPP projects like this, long-term funds, you need long-term funds, you need probably infrastructure projects, you need probably funds for 30 years. What kind of window is there open for you to access that kind of long-term funds?
I think you are correct. PPP projects are a long gestation period, need a very long-term financial term loans, and sometimes ranging from 20 to 30 years. To build this airport, we have taken the loan, 17 years tenure loan, which is the longest tenure loan probably in India. But what we need is a reform process wherein the pension funds should be freely allowed to invest in the infrastructure project. And we should allow foreign pension funds to come to India and invest in the infrastructure project. That I think is a key thing. The reason is that foreign pension funds, they have a long-term tenure money available and they can invest in the infrastructure project. Just keep in mind is that India needs more than $500 billion in the infrastructure project, and most of them have to come through the PPP. And if they have to come through the PPP, they have to have a long-term funds available. So I personally believe pension fund is one important area where long-term money is available to invest into this kind of
provided we can settle the political responses to bringing in pension funds, which we've seen some opposition from the left parties on that count. But we have to figure out a way to do that.
I think we have to figure it out as a country.
But tell me, as a company which is doing this large project, each time you do a PPP project in infrastructure, you have to by law have a SPV, a special purpose vehicle, to execute to the Delhi project. Now, there's a problem there in dividends, right?
Absolutely. What happens is that every PPP project, you can only do it through a SPV, a special purpose vehicle. A special purpose vehicle, once it is set up, it has got a dividend flow where it is taxed. Then that goes into a main company. Then the dividend flow is taxed. Twice the dividend is taxed. I think for a PPP project which are involved in the infrastructure project, to tax the dividend twice, I think it is a very, very financially a wrong proposition. And that I think the budget need to look into it, and the FM need to look into this particular element. Because every PPP project is an SPV. There is no choice other than SPV.
Right.
Okay, you cannot do any other mechanism. So once it is an SPV project, then I think a double taxation of a dividend is a bit an issue. Really.
Is the problem.
Is a problem.
Right. So the finance minister, if he has an option, what should he do? He should make it taxable only at one point.
I think it should be taxable at one point. Preferably, if he allows, he should not tax it. I'll tell you why. Infrastructure projects really need a long-term finance, and most of that money will come from the pension funds. And pension funds do have a lot of other impact on the retirees and the oldest people. From that angle, my belief is that any kind of the dividend which flows from here should not be taxed.
Right.
Then what happens, more and more money will flow into this kind of the infrastructure project.
Let me ask
but
you
even if it has to be taxed,
Yeah.
at least it should be taxed only once, not
I
twice.
want you to get you away from tax to another problem which we've seen many of the larger projects they face, especially manufacturing projects, which is land acquisition.
Yeah.
One very quick way to handle this land acquisition problem, very quickly.
Yeah. I think in fact, where we are standing, there was a lot of encroachment which was here, and somehow we got it cleared out with the help of the government and the port and others. But the one key element which is facing the infrastructure project is a land acquisition. I think the government should pass a stringent law in which land acquisition should not be questioned. But an affected person can only go and claim compensation, and he can only litigate on the quantum of the compensation, but not on the speed of the acquisition.
Okay.
That process, somewhere we need to put in place. Both the state government and central government need to work together to figure it out.
So that's the land acquisition thing.
Land acquisition encroachment.
Right.
Doesn't mean that an acquired land is there, but it is required for the infrastructure project.
Right.
If anybody has encroached it, the court should not interfere in it.
Right.
Okay, basically you clear it out and later find out whether it is a legally the person had a right. If he legally had a right, he has a right for the compensation. Let him seek a compensation.
We are running out of time, but let me ask you one more thing. As an airport developer, what is the one big thing that you want the finance minister to do which relates specifically to aviation?
Most important element he has to look at is taxation on the ATF fuel. ATF fuel, if you look at in India, I think India pays the maximum taxation on the ATF fuel, which is affecting the aviation sector. Once it affects the airlines and the aviation sector, it does affect the airport. But before that, I would like to pass a closing remark.
Yeah.
This particular airport, currently the airport which is a running airport, employs 40,000 people. That means 40,000 families are being dependent on this airport.
Right.
And the entire Delhi, I think, has got a 40 lakh families. That means 1 out of 100 families are supported by this airport. So airport is a very economic magnet. And I heard that Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam contributes 3% of Holland's GDP.
Right.
3% of Holland's GDP. From that angle, I think the country's future should be well protected through airports like Delhi airports.
that's it on the show. Thank you, Mr. Shankaraju, for joining us.